My stepson told everyone I was stealing from his college fund to buy designer bags. The whole family turned against me. Then I showed them where that money really went, and his father's face went white. When I married Michael 3 years ago, I knew becoming a stepmother to his 17-year-old son Jake would be challenging. What I didn't expect was to become the target of an elaborate character assassination campaign designed to drive me out of their lives forever. The breaking point came last month during Jake's 18th birthday party, when he publicly accused me of stealing from his college fund to finance what he called my shopping addiction. The accusation hit like a thunderbolt during what should have been a celebration. We were surrounded by extended family, neighbors, and Jake's friends when he suddenly stood up during the gift opening portion of the party and announced that he had something important to share with everyone. His voice carried across the backyard as he declared that he'd been investigating mysterious withdrawals from his college savings account, and had discovered that his stepmother had been systematically stealing from his future education to buy designer handbags and expensive jewelry. The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye in the gathering turned to me as Jake continued his performance, producing printed bank statements that he claimed showed a pattern of unauthorized withdrawals coinciding with my shopping trips. He had even created a timeline matching the dates of withdrawals to photos from my social media accounts showing new purchases. The evidence he presented looked damning, and the crowd's reaction was immediate and harsh. Michael's sister Sarah was the first to speak, expressing her shock and disappointment that I would steal from a child's education fund. Michael's parents, who had always been somewhat cool toward me, exchanged knowing looks that suggested they had suspected something like this all along. Even our neighbors, people I had considered friends, began whispering among themselves and looking at me with expressions of disgust and judgment. The most painful part was watching Michael's reaction. Instead of defending me or questioning Jake's accusations, he stared at me with a mixture of confusion and growing anger. When I tried to speak, to defend myself against these outrageous claims, Jake cut me off by producing what he said was the final piece of evidence, a credit card statement showing a $5,000 purchase at a luxury boutique on the same day that a significant withdrawal had been made from his college account. The party effectively ended at that moment. Guests began making awkward excuses and leaving early, while family members stayed behind to discuss what they had just witnessed. I found myself completely isolated, with even Michael refusing to listen to my attempts to explain. He demanded that I return to the house while he stayed outside to talk with Jake and his family about what to do next. Sitting alone in our bedroom that evening, I realized that Jake had been planning this attack for months. The timing wasn't accidental. He had waited until his 18th birthday party, when the maximum number of people would be present to witness my humiliation. He had also waited until he was legally an adult, which meant he now had direct access to his college fund and could review the account statements independently. What made Jake's accusations particularly devastating was that they contained just enough truth to be believable. I did shop for designer items occasionally, though much less frequently than he claimed. I did have access to the family finances, including knowledge of the college fund, though I had never touched it. Most importantly, there had indeed been large withdrawals from Jake's account over the past several months, which I knew because I had been tracking them carefully for reasons Jake couldn't possibly understand. The real story behind those withdrawals was something I had kept secret for months, honoring a promise I had made to someone who desperately needed my help. 6 months earlier, Michael's ex-wife Linda, Jake's biological mother, had contacted me in desperation. She had been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer that required experimental treatment not covered by her insurance. The treatment was expensive and time-sensitive, and she had already exhausted her savings and borrowed against her retirement accounts. Linda's call had been one of the most difficult conversations of my life. She explained that she had swallowed her pride to reach out because she had nowhere else to turn. She couldn't ask Michael for help because their divorce had been acrimonious, and she was afraid he would refuse or use her illness against her in some way. She also couldn't tell Jake about her diagnosis because she didn't want to burden him with worry during his senior year of high school, especially when the prognosis was uncertain. After several sleepless nights, I had made the decision to help Linda using money from Jake's college fund, with the understanding that I would replace every penny before he needed it for college. I had calculated that his college wouldn't start for another year, giving me time to work extra shifts at my nursing job and sell some of my own investments to restore the fund. Linda had been incredibly grateful and had promised to keep my help confidential until she was ready to tell Jake about her illness herself. Over the following months, I had quietly transferred money to cover Linda's treatment costs while simultaneously working overtime and making sacrifices to rebuild Jake's college savings. I had sold jewelry, worked double shifts at the hospital, and even sold my car to buy a cheaper used model, all to ensure that Jake's education fund would be fully restored before he graduated